Hello everyone and welcome back to Paper Peony. I'm Kimberly Jones, and as promised I am bringing my masculine cards to video. This is the second batch of cards that I have used or created, and this is using the Trusty Tools stamp set. It's an oldie but goodie. It has been in our book before. This is a recurring stamp set bundle, and then the dies are... There's a lot of dies. There is a pegboard, which is really cute, and we're going to be using today. There is a toolbox that you can actually make with this handle in this square or rectangle. There's a power drill that you can make. There's nuts and bolts and a wrench. And then I don't really know what this piece is. Happens to be some kind of, I guess it's a wood pencil. And then we have the ones that are actually cutting out the stamped images also. So this is a very, very good bundle to have for all of the men in your life, because who doesn't use tools? So you have the measuring tape, you have a hammer, a wrench, a paintbrush, a pencil, and then these awesome sayings. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is that this is a photopolymer stamp set, so you can actually see where you're stamping, and it is a two-step, so you can actually color in your handles instead of using your blends or markers with different colored inks. We will be using all of these stamps in upcoming videos. But for right now, we're doing this pegboard card. It says "You're the most awesome," and then when you open it up, then you've got a mini pegboard in here with a screwdriver. And then you can have enough room to leave a message. So let's get started. Now, a lot of this I have already done for the sake of the time of the video, but I am going to show you how everything comes together and how to put it together. So for the first thing, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to show you how I stamped all of these tools. So I have some basic white here, and I have got all of my stamps already mounted. You're going to use Memento ink, black ink. It's just my go-to, because you also can use this with your blends, alcohol markers, and so it's just my go-to. So this is the outline of the pencil, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to stamp the pencil 3 times. Okay, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to stamp the hammer and the wrench. So I'll come in and I'm going to stamp the hammer. And then I'm going to come in and do the same as with the wrench. All right, and then when you get that done, then you're going to come in with all your different colored inks. And what I did is I used Lost Lagoon for the wrench. And it's going to be your taller one. Okay. And when you stamp it for the first time, it's going to appear really, really dark. And so you can obviously place this over your handle, and you're just going to stamp it like so. Now, that looks really dark right now, but it's going to lighten up, I promise. Okay, and then you're going to come in with that smaller one and do your hammer. And I did the hammer in Daffodil Delight. So I'm going to bring my ink here and come in with my hammer handle and just kind of place that over your hammer. Okay. And then last but not least, for the 2 pencils, I did Poppy Parade, since that's the base of the color of the card, and then Blueberry Bushel, because it's more of a royal blue, and I wanted a royal blue for this particular card. And this is the inside of the pencil, and make sure there's a slight point on the end that goes on the end of the pencil. Okay, so make sure that you know that. And I'm going to do a stamp off, because I really don't want this to be so dark that you don't see the lines. So I'm going to do a stamp off, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to stamp my pencil, and see, you can see the lines on it when you do a stamp off. Okay, so I'm going to do that one more time because we have two. Okay, and that one kind of went off the page. So I'm going to come in and fix it. And see, that's the beauty of the photopolymer. If you miss the first time, you can always go back a second time. Okay. So there's the Brilliant Blue, or the Blueberry Bushel, and then here is the Poppy Parade. So I'm going to clean off my ink, making sure not to get muddied ink pads. And same with the Poppy Parade. You're going to stamp off, and then you're going to come in, and then you're going to stamp your pencil. Okay. And then I just came in with my blends, my light Daffodil Delight, and kind of colored in the pencil tops to give it some kind of color. And then to color in the hammer and the wrench, I used my Smoky Slate, light and dark. I colored in the light first. You can do it either way, but you're just going to come in and you're just going to color your tools. And I'm just going to do a really rough color so I can show you how I did this. And then I took in the dark using the fine tip nib and did my outlines on the tool part. Just follow those lines that the artist did. Then I just kind of went in and I outlined the whole entire hammerhead. Now this is going to look really dark right now. But after you get that done, then you're going to bring back in that light color, okay? And making sure you use the fine tip. And you're just going to bleed those colors together. Making sure you grab that darker color into the lighter. Okay, now when that dries, and you're going to do the same thing with the wrench. When that dries, then you're going to be left with tools that look like this. Okay, see how they got a lot lighter? Okay, so here is the hammer, here is the wrench, and I just used the die cuts and cut them out. And then the same with the pencils. So there's the pencils, and just die cut those out, and then you're left with pencils. Okay. All right, so now with the pegboard. Okay, so the pegboard, this is a piece of black, and it is, the measurements for this black is, let's see, okay, 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take this pegboard. Now here's what I wanted to share. The pegboard, if you want it a certain way, you're going to have to lay it a certain way. Okay, see how it's a rectangle? If you laid it this way, then you would have a problem getting all of this pieced together and having the same border all the way around. So what I did is I came in on the top, laid it in like so, making sure I had a border around it 3 different ways, or like the sides and the top. Then I went down here and did the same thing. I lined it up after it die cut, lined it up and made sure I had a bottom border and a 2 sides border. And then it comes out perfect. It comes out that you have the same border all the way around. Okay. Now on the inside is a little bit narrow. Okay. And the inside piece, black piece, I have it 1 3/8 by 3 3/8 because I just wanted a little bitty image. What I did is I placed this where I knew I was going to get a border. See, like right here, the dots, you want to make sure that they line up where you have a border on the outside. So that's what I did. So see how right there is going to give me a border. So that's what I did. And make sure it lines up the bottom. See, I have these dots hanging off, so they're not going to cut. See, they're not going to cut that bottom. These will, and it's going to leave me a little bit of a border on the bottom and the top when I run it through. Okay, so A smart thing to do, I mean, I didn't feel like it was necessary, but if you use like a Post-it tape or some washi tape to tape this down so it doesn't move on you, you will have a better outcome when you run it through the die cut machine. Okay, so let's build this card together, and I will tell you the measurements of all these pieces as we do it. So I use Poppy Parade as my background color. And so this is 4 1/4 by 11, and then you're going to score it 5 1/2. So I'm bringing in my score cutting tool, and I'm going to bring it at 5 1/2 using my score blade, which would be the gray one. And I'm going to come across it a couple times. That's not, there it is. It wasn't snapped in. Okay, and then I'm scoring the card. I'm going to bring it tip to tip to make sure it lines up correctly. And then I just used my bone folder and did a sharp, crisp fold at the top. Then you're going to bring in a piece of white, basic white. The white is 1/8 of an inch shorter, so it's 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Okay, and then you're just going to glue this down. Because it has a fine border, I'm using this green glue or Tombow to get that nice. So I have control of where it's going to lay, because you do have wiggle room once you lay this down. And I don't like that blob right there. Okay, so then you're going to bring this in, eyeball a border, your borders, making sure you have a little bit of Poppy Parade showing on all 4 sides. Okay, then you're going to bring in your bigger pegboard. And using your glue, I just kind of went in and kind of just touched on really fine, brought in my glue and just went around the outside edges, because you have that little small border on the outside. Okay, you're just going to real finely. Now, if you don't have a steady hand, then you can also use our self-adhesive sheets and run this through with that, and then the whole entire thing would be sticky. And then it would act as a sticker, and you can just put it down without glue. Now, to purchase these products that I'm using, you can go on my website, linked down into the comments or into the video. If you don't have a demonstrator, I would love for you to go on my website and look at my products. If you have questions, I will gladly answer those. But I am new to doing this as a business. I was a hobby demo for a very, very long time, and I would love your business. Okay, so here's the pegboard there. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I cut a smoky slate piece of cardstock, and this is 1 by 1 3/4, and this is going to be my pencil holder. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the fine tip glue. You can also use tear and tape if you're not patient for this glue to dry. You're just going to do the 3 edges. The top you're going to leave alone because you're going to tuck in those pencils. Okay, and I just kind of came down, leaving like 2 different lines there, and kind of put it in between the holes, because you have to visualize what a pegboard actually functions as. Okay, and while that is drying, what I did is I just brought in like a pencil and kind of just tucked in a pencil to kind of put in a hole there. But you got to make sure that this dries first, or it's going to just lift like it just did. So we'll leave that alone for a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to bring in our wrench, and we're going to bring in our hammer, place those where we want on here, and I kind of put them kind of like in between the holes. Because if when you when you put like the hooks and stuff on a pegboard, it's going to be in the holes, and so your tools are going to lay in between. So I'm using dimensions on this because I wanted them to kind of stand up off the pegboard, and I'm using the little ones because of the width of the tools. Okay. And I used 4 on the wrench. And And then on the hammer, it's a little wider on the top. So I used 3 on the top, and then I just went down the handle, spacing them out. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll understand why. Okay. I have one that doesn't have a backing off. There we go. Okay. Actually, I have 2 that don't have backings off. Okay. So then you're going to come up here and kind of stagger this a little bit higher than the wrench. Okay. And then you're ready to stamp your saying, "You're the most awesome." So that's what that has right there. And that is in the stamp set. I used the Poppy Parade to tie in the red. And I already have that mounted on a block. And you're just going to stamp that in the red. Let's see if I can get this on straight without having to redo it. And it says, "You're the most awesome." Okay. And then what I did after that, I wanted to tie in that yellow a little bit better, so I used that Daffodil Delight blend. And I went around, and I do believe I used the darker one to make it brighter. Use that fine tip. And then you just go around that border, bringing in the yellow. Now, be careful that you don't touch the red ink, because if you didn't allow yourself enough time for that red to dry, it will marry in with that yellow and cause it to be orange. So make sure that you don't let that happen. And you know, with any alcohol marker, that the alcohol will evaporate and change your color. So I know that looks really big and bold right now, but it will lighten. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry while we're doing the inside. So flip the inside or the top of the card, and then I'm just going to put in a piece of white where it's light for people to write on. So just bring in some basic white, line that up. It is a 1/4 inch shy of the card, so it is 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, because it's not going to be layered. And then I brought in my little pegboard, did the same thing as the outside. Just go around those edges really faintly, or in between the lines, or in between the dots. So it stays on your card. Okay. And then put it in that bottom left corner, however you would like. Okay. Now, my screwdriver came from our printed paper that was one of our celebration items a year ago. And you will see that in closer detail in my next tutorial when I do my toolbox gift card, which is really cool, by the way. You'll love that class. But anyway, on this one right here, I'm going to use dimensions, like regular size dimensions, since it's wide enough. And never get rid of the outside of your dimensions, because every piece on here is usable. So I just go in and just cut them. And then just put them around. And I use 3 little pieces on my sign, kind of like so. And then just bring that around and just put that at the top. Okay. Then on this side, on the inside, I just cut a screwdriver out of the paper and then just pop dotted it and put it on here. Now you can stamp another wrench or a hammer or whatever and put that on here if you want, or a pencil, whatever you want to do. There's paintbrushes, power drills, and all that, but the power drill is a little bit wider. Okay, so the last thing to do on this card is to put in our pencils. Okay, and so I, on the original, had the tips hanging out of the cup. You can put them on the opposite side, but if you do it on the opposite, I would definitely make this two-tone end. So, but for the sake of this, I just tuck these in. And the other thing, if you don't want them, you can cut these cut the ends off because you're only sticking in your pencils halfway. So no one knows that these are not full-fledged pencils. So just kind of stick those in, and they're a lot easier when they're shorter. Okay, and then there is your card. So very quick, very simple once you have all your pieces cut out and stamped. But there is the pegboard tool card that I created. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you give it a try. This is a very fun set to use, and it goes a long way for a lot of people. Thank you guys, and have a great day. Bye-bye.